Hi, I'm Natalia Poteryakhin. I'm a 2D generalist and story artist here at Make. On screen is the lovely Joshua Schneider, director of House of the Outlands, but I'm going to be stepping in to walk you through some of what me and Josh have talked about when it comes to creating an appealing character design, putting the weight of the drawing where it needs to be, creating visual rhythm, and all the principles that are going to make a bit more sense, hopefully, once you actually see the process of Josh drawing them from start to finish. As Josh dives into drawing Harmony, our main character, the thing that he's thinking about is shapes. He's saying rough and loose and scratchy because in this stage, shapes are way more important than lines. What does that mean? Lines are just a means to an end. If the shapes under the lines are crap, it doesn't matter how nice the lines are, the drawing is gonna be crap. That's what creates visual appeal. You have a very rounded face on top of angular hair, a rounded poofy sweater on top of thin spindly legs, and sharp angular boots grounding the character. She has the half-lidded eyes rather than the big open anime eyes. She feels mischievous, a little evil, but also not. It creates harmony, like the name suggests, like the yin and yang symbol on her shirt, a contrast of light and dark. As Josh launches into coloring Harmony, let's talk about the decision to give her colored line work. As you look at her hair and her pants, she has red lines on her hair and blue on her pants, and it helps punch her silhouette out of backgrounds that are otherwise completely dark, and her form is completely dark as well. If you remove the colored lines, she would melt away into the shadows and you wouldn't be able to see her very well. So the colored line work serves that purpose. But it also has a second purpose of it gives you a sense of the underlying undertone of the clothing in a very clever way. When you see that bright blue outline on the pants, it feels like a midnight blue velvet without actually drawing any texture on the pants itself. So I think that's pretty cool. As Josh launches into drawing the action pose for Harmony, you're gonna see how the design adapts to create movement. He's gonna pull angles out where he needs them, like in her sharp knee, because that's gonna create tension in the image, and that's what makes you feel like she's actually about to move instead of, just being perfectly still. This is a bit of a obvious hack that artists use, but maybe you haven't paid attention to it before, which is that if you put diagonals in an image, it instinctually creates tension for the viewer. Images that have a lot of up and down and parallel lines don't have a lot of tension in them. It's more symmetrical. Versus when you have those opposing gridlock diagonals, that's what feels like something is about to happen. There's tension. She feels like she's about to leap up. Her knee is opposed to the diagonal of her hair. But enough about that. Let's talk about angles. House on the Outlands is a non-Euclidean environment. What does that mean? It's a very fancy way of saying that the angles don't meet each other where they should. It feels surreal, it feels like a forced, broken perspective, and it pulls from Josh's greatest inspiration, which is Lovecraftian cosmic horror. That was a guy who was so afraid of angles going in the wrong places that he wrote a bunch of short horror stories about it, and now Josh has incorporated that into the visual language of House on the Outlands, and that's in the characters as well. So when it comes to applying that frame of thought to a character design, Josh had to walk a thin line between creating graphic, flat shapes and still having form in the characters. And that's what he does with overlap. The overlap of Harmony's hand over her shirt sleeve makes you feel like her hand is coming out of the shirt sleeve, even though that hard angle should be impossible. You can see diagonals in all the designs that Josh draws for House on the Outlands, even in Virgil as we move on to the next design, who is a round, cute, cuddly bear. But as you look at the design of his triangular shirt, none of the horizontal stripes are parallel to the frame. He creates diagonals by breaking the geometry for the non-Euclidean forms that we were talking about earlier, but also just because it creates more visual interest. Now let's take a look at Virgil's eyes. When you think about one of the main shortcuts for cute, you think of big, round, glassy eyes. I think of that scene from Puss in Boots or Appa from Avatar: The Last Airbender. But Virgil has tiny beady eyes, and it should go counter to what you think would be the cute animal companion sidekick. But what I love about it is that it forces Virgil to emote by pantomime, by waving his tiny little arms around because he can't say what he wants to say with his mouth or with his eyes. It's a really good example of how limiting your character design can create more appeal to the character. Finally, I want to dive into the color choices of Virgil. Now, Josh did think about making him brown, like a classic teddy bear. But it was when he put him next to Harmony that he realized he needed to make him blue to complement her red as the main character. When you put them side by side, the red and blue feels a lot more like they're a pair, they're a unit, than if he was just the generic brown teddy bear. All right, it's time to move on to Virgil transforming into his big, bad, scary bear wolf form. Everything about this design was built on contrast. Everything that Virgil was, this is not. If Virgil was round and small and impotent and unable to do much with his little stubby arms, the bear wolf is big and made of triangles instead of circles. He's brawny. The silhouette is completely changed. If I black out the silhouettes and put them side by side, you wouldn't even know it's the same character. Now as Josh starts drawing the action pose for the bear wolf rather than the more technical drawing, you can see how the design is incorporating a lot more asymmetry than the previous pose. And that makes sense because the previous pose is more informative. It's showing you the proportions of the character. It's showing you how to draw the character. It's a lot more similar to what we would create for a model sheet. But an action pose, that's where you're bringing out all the tasty asymmetry that adds visual interest. Now, that's not to say that symmetry is bad. I could probably make a whole nother video on how you can use symmetry or asymmetry to achieve what you want for your cinematic goals, but that would take too long. So if you want that, you could leave a comment below and we'll make that next time. But in this case, I'm just gonna say that Josh loves asymmetry and it really suits the visual language of House on the Outlands to push asymmetry where you can. With that, you can see all of the finished character designs. I don't know about you, but I learned a lot watching Josh go from start to finish, finding the shapes, creating overlapping forms, pushing the angles and the contrast of each design. And I hope we'll see you again soon on another behind the scenes video for Make Originals. Also, if you literally can't wait to see any more of House on the Outlands, then you should follow us at Make Original Series on Instagram, because that's where we put all our process and little teasers and snippets leading up to the release in 2024. Thank you. Bye.